in the literature the fact that developing countries have a large percentage of households that are credit constrained, and developing countries are usually dominated by an agricultural sector, right? So I contribute to the literature by examining how fiscal policy via government spending affects key macroeconomic variables in developing countries and their credit constraints, and also how these effects differ from a simple representative agent model to a heterogeneous agent model, where the agents are largely credit constrained, right? So to the best of my knowledge, or to the best of our knowledge, this has never been done before under a developing country context. Right, so we obviously have to look at the micro evidence, right? So if you look at this table shows you credit constraints, how population in developing countries are largely credit constrained. So compared to developed countries, developing countries have large credit constraints, right? So for example, access to formal financial institution, only 22% of the population in developing countries have access to formal financial institution compared to 90% in developed countries. For example, saving in a financial institution is only 15% compared to 49%. And the ability to borrow from a financial institution is 8.6% compared to 17.3%, right? So that actually necessitates the fact that majority of the population in developing countries are largely credit constrained, so models should actually be more realistic in that sense, right? Incorporating households that are credit constrained. Right. Also, a large portion of GDP in developing countries is agriculture, or is agricultural in that sense. So, for example, 45% in developing countries for agriculture share of GDP compared to 22% in developed countries, and employment in agriculture is pretty big in developing countries, which is 63.5% compared to 3.8%. Right. And the problem with having a huge sector or a huge economy largely driven by agricultural goods is that prices tend to be volatile, right? So we do have the phenomenon of actually having prices being flexible, right? So in the literature, it's shown that prices in developing countries via the agricultural sector are largely volatile or are largely flexible.
So these are kind of very old data or recent data? Because you're saying agriculture share of GDP is 22% for developed countries, looks very large.
Actually,
this is about 22%, 30%.
This is actually 2015 data.
How is it defined? I'm not sure how they define developed countries is kind of hard. Okay, we'll continue.
Okay, yeah. But basically, I'm trying to show the point that developing countries is different. It's largely different. Yeah. Right. So I start off with a representative agent model, and I hold the following assumptions. So in this model, the representative agent is largely credit constrained, so Ricardian equivalence does not hold. Also hold the assumption of neutrality of money because prices tend to be largely flexible. So the households maximize expected lifetime utility given by equation 1 and given the logarithmic function equation 2. So CT is basically consumption, NT is basically labor, and GT is some exogenous government spending, and exogenous government spending does not actually affect households' behavior on consumption and labor to some extent directly, but the household actually derives specifically from exogenous government spending. Right, so it's a really